All right. Good morning, everybody. Today we're continuing on the series with deploying or running Node.js Express servers in a serverless environment, more specifically AWS. This is the fourth video, and we already looked at, introduction. We had basic setup, and then we did some convenience modifications, let's say, moving some files around, renaming some things, adding some tooling. In this video, I wanna just continue on the modifications, and there I wanna work on maybe splitting up this here and looking at the configuration that we have, so that we can set up two projects, two stacks, one the production one and the second one just dev environment. Okay, I think we can jump right into it. So let's talk about how the deployment works. So Lambda works in a way, AWS Lambda works in a way that it's not like with other hosting mechanisms that you just basically upload your source folder and a package JSON, and that's good enough. And then they install the libraries for you, and sorry, and then run the server. Lambda expects you to upload everything, right? It can be just one file, or it can be a zip file. Well, yeah, basically it's always just one file. It doesn't matter if it's a JavaScript file or if it's a zip file that contains everything that needs to be run. So what we need to do here is we need to create that zip file, or that JavaScript file. With our project, with most projects, since it's a little bit of a bigger project, it's probably not sufficient to just have one file. It's gonna get pretty messy pretty quickly. So the solution here is to bundle everything together and create a zip file and then upload that. Now bundling, this is a fun topic that was up until, not up until now, but usually would only be limited to front-end JavaScript, but now we're getting a nice taste of it in the backend as well. And this is why we have Webpack config here. The what is it? The Vendia, whatever. Yeah, Vendia Serverless Express library. They use Webpack, which is perfectly fine. Works stable. Is the old kid, let's say. Let me actually remove this one here because I'm not using that anymore. You can, if you have any other files that need manual copying, then that's fine, but I don't use that at the moment. Okay, so what Webpack does is it takes in a entry file and then creates one bundle, which is in the dist folder. And then Vendia goes ahead, and this is what is being done with npm run build, right? Npm run build calls this Webpack config, calls Webpack with a Webpack config file, and then creates one bundle that we have here, and then is then being uploaded. I think we saw that in one of the previous videos where the Lambda function has just this huge file here that is just gibberish basically. And that's also better because with the serverless architecture, basically there's no server running at all times, so there's no files in memory. There is the function is being executed from scratch basically every time the function is being requested, the function invocation is being requested, right? So with other servers that are running the whole time, when starting up, they would load all the files into memory. Maybe not all, but most they would load into memory, and that way they would be very quick with executing those files. And it wouldn't matter if they're compressed or not. But when they're not in memory, it's actually quite an advantage to minimize the amount of code. It might look like a lot, but it's actually not that lot. And I was curious as to how this performs, right? So we can actually compare that. So let's see. I'm gonna go back to this one here and just request the API URL, right? And then I'm gonna go ahead to the network tab and reload. Let me give it a little bit more space here. Reload, and you can see the request takes 44 milliseconds, which is, I would say quite impressive. That's really good, I think. And it's in that ballpark, around 40 to 50. I think for the first invocation, it's a little bit more I've seen, so they might do some caching. But yeah, it's about that. So as a comparison, I'm just gonna service ping. I'm gonna use that, and this is, I think it's hosted on render.com, and that's 20 milliseconds, 27, which is a little bit quicker, which is expected, but still the 40 milliseconds is not too bad, right? And as a trade-off for not having to deal with all the architecture and more, and also having somewhat the same response time all over the world, because it's edge optimized, I think that's pretty good. Because if you request that server is running in Frankfurt, Germany. So if you request that from, let's say, Indonesia, then this wouldn't be 30 milliseconds. It would probably be something like 200 milliseconds. Yeah, more or less. I don't know. And then I assume that with AWS Lambda, that's going to be somewhat like this as well, because they have a data center in Singapore, I think. So yeah, that would be pretty good, I would expect. But yeah. So that's for the performance. So now it's going up a little bit, but yeah, so back to 40. That's fine. So that's why we need to compress the files as much as possible, and this is being done with Webpack. Good. Once we have that bundle, the library is creating a zip file and then uploading that to S3, I think. Let's see, template file. Okay, template package, S3 bucket. Yeah, I think they're uploading to S3, and then CloudFormation is using that from S3. I'm not exactly sure how it works, and it doesn't matter too much. But yeah, we're using what is in the dist folder. So let's do something else. So yeah, I'm gonna rename those a little bit. So I like to put everything together what is related to the deployment stage, right? So these are these two, and then create bucket, delete bucket. That's just for the setup, and to be honest, you never call this anyway. Right, the invoke lambda is debugging, and then the local is also, I think that's to run the function locally. You never did that, but yeah, I expect that. So I will just rename that to dev local, and then dev invoke lambda, that's debug. Also call that debug local and debug invoke lambda, whatever. And then, so I like to use this naming scheme with a colon. That way I know it's all like, this is one section about developing. And then this I will call, what is it? Release, let's call it release, and then build. And then release packaging, release deployment. And then this will be called just release, right? So later on, we can just call npm run release, well, basically what we did before, but I think it's a little bit clearer that way. And this one here, I would say setup create bucket, setup delete bucket, setup delete stack, and just setup, right? If you don't want to use that anymore, just call the setup delete stack. Now with that, I need to go through these here and see, because sometimes, so for example, for the release step, they're referencing the other commands. So I need to rename those as well. Release package and release deploy. Let me see if there's anything else here. Okay, that looks okay. Okay, setup create bucket. That's fine. Delete stack. Okay, that's fine. Okay. npm setup create bucket, and then npm setup release, actually. Now this is it's just for the sake of completeness, because the setup, you only run that once. From now on, or once you ran it once, you're just gonna use a release or dev, or if you wanna delete the stack, you're just gonna call this one, but you're probably not gonna run the setup step anymore. But still, just for the sake of completeness, I'm gonna leave that there. Good. Now I want to extract these things here, these npm package config, these references to somewhere else, so that we can create, because remember, the goal is to have two environments, two deployments, one for production, one for dev, and then we want to run that in GitHub Actions, so we don't need to manually run that. And also, so that, let's say we have a team, and then not everybody should have access to AWS, right? And let's say the team lead or tech lead, whatever, is sick, right? You don't want to do that. You don't want to wait for him to come back to make a hotfix release or something like that, right? So I like to do that. Okay, name, I'm just gonna rename that. What is it? Serverless Node AWS. Gonna be version 1.1. Yep, that's fine. Main Lambda. Okay. Now I'm just gonna have that. I'm gonna remove that. Let me think how I'm gonna do that. So probably what we can do is use environment variables, because I'm gonna do some bash scripting, and then then we can use that, because then, so basically only what changes are these values, I think. Then the SAM template, that's not using anything hard-coded, because we pass everything inside there through these refs, right? Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm just gonna vars. Yeah, I mean, you could call that .env. I'm probably not gonna leave that later on, but for now, yeah. For now, that's fine. So .env .production maybe, and one .env for development. Okay, now let's try function name, and then we're gonna convert everything to bash variables. Okay. Function. Actually, okay, it's just one. Okay, we're gonna have that function name, which is this one here, in debug at least. Okay, and I'm gonna have all those replaced with just the region, the variable region. So I'm gonna have the region. Okay. I have the region here. Then cloud formation stack name. I have cloud formation stack name. Okay. I have this. Very good. And then function name. Do we have that? No, I already did that. Oops. And then and then the bucket name. Oops. Bucket name. Bucket name. There we go. Bucket name is this one here. Okay, and then finally, I'm not using that right now. It's probably going to be the next video. But we want to be able to pass a domain, right? It's just referenced here. I'm just going to have that domain. I'm going to leave that empty and actually comment that for now. Okay, and now we transferred everything to a separate file. And then can use that. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna remove that actually from config, from the package JSON, this config, and then try to. So we need to how bash or how the shell works in general is that you need to export those variables, and then you can access those in other commands. And one way of doing that would be to just copy that and then pass that in the beginning, right? So you might have seen something like node.env equals production and then npm run start, right? That way the command, everything in this command, everything that is being run has access to the variable node.env, right? Or in Node, that would be process.env. Okay. I'm just gonna copy and paste that for the moment. Later on with GitHub Actions, that's gonna be a little bit differently. Okay, so this, and then actually let me make a change so we can see if that's working. So I'm gonna add something, removed envars is true. So if we deploy that and I can access that with the URL and I get this variable, I know it worked. Okay, so I'm gonna do that, and then yarn not yarn, we're using npm, npm run release. Let's see if that works. Okay, it's gonna build. Let me a little bit smaller. Okay, Now the updating doesn't take too long usually. The creation does take a little bit longer, right? Makes sense, I guess. So let's go to the events. Oh, okay, now update completed. Should be, maybe that's outdated, no? Okay, maybe that's, yeah, okay. Update completed, perfect. Now let's go for the moment of truth. I'm gonna reload, and there it is. So that still worked. We didn't do much, right? But that worked now. Now, what I can do simply is I'm gonna copy and paste that and make a different stack. Just change the names and make a different stack for production. So I'm just gonna have production, use central one, stack name, node stack, production, bucket name, production. Actually, usually what I do is have, yeah, let me have one debug, one dev, right? Because the production one, I just don't have anything added to it, but the debug rather. And then dev. That's how I like to do it. You can do it differently as well. Okay, and then since it's a different stack name, and a completely different stack, we need to run the setup again, right? So I copied those values, paste them here in the beginning, and then I'm gonna call npm run setup. And now this is gonna take a little bit. And don't worry, I mean, the copying is manual right now. It's a little bit tedious, but that's gonna be automated with GitHub Actions later on. So there's no need to optimize that right now. We're gonna replace that later on with another mechanism. Okay. So that is that. Okay, let's have something to determine if that's the production server or not. Okay, so what I like to do is have a variable called env. So I'm gonna make a config.js, and then module.exports is env, and then depending on the environment I'm in, that's either production or development. So const env is process and environment or development, right? So that way we don't need to pass that one locally. And then const is dev is env equals development. Const is production is env equals production. Env is dev. I'm gonna is production. Okay. You could, if you have more environments, that's fine. You can have different. You can add staging here or whatever. And we need to pass that somewhere. By default, it's development, right? So we need to pass that somewhere, and the place we're going to pass that, actually, no, let me prepare that. Let me get the config here. Const config is require config, right? And then I'm gonna actually have, I'm gonna debug is config is production. So if it's not production, then that's true. Stage, I'm gonna remove that. That's something, yeah, I mean, you can use that for the environments as well. I found it to be a little bit, well, I didn't get it to work And then also, I think that would be the same domain, which we don't want to. So I decided to go with two completely different stacks altogether. Date, that doesn't get us anywhere. And then I'm just gonna have the environment is config.env, right? Then I'm gonna deploy it. Well, so this is done now. So here you can see that I do have the production stack and then the node, the dev stack as well. And I think, yeah, and the dev, right? Because that's not production. I changed my mind. So I'm gonna run that again because so okay, no. So I'm gonna have, so this is the production one. No changes yet. And then here we also have the outputs. I can go to that URL, and this will be the the development one. Random URLs right now, but we're gonna change that in a second. Oh well, not in a second, but in the next video. But for now, I just want to make sure that these two are like displaying the correct environment. So I'm gonna make a new release for both of them. Copy that, npm run release. And then in a separate one, with the other one, with the other variables, also npm run release. Okay, now they're releasing. There's one more step for us to do, right? Because we're expecting the environment variable env. Let me go to config, right? This we're expecting this to be passed as process environment variable. So we need to define that somewhere. That's not coming by default. So let's do that for production first. Actually, that would be the only place where we would need it, because the development is by default. The development is default value. So I'm gonna go here, and then we're gonna go to the Lambda function console URL in the outputs. All right, gonna go there. And then what we can do is go to configuration, and you can see there's the environment variables. I'm gonna edit that, add an environment variable, and then I'm gonna say env is production. Save that. There we go. That's done. The deployments have gone through, so now if I execute that, one should be production, and the other one, see, that's the production one, and the other one is also production. Well, yeah, that's not what I was expecting. Let me see. Process and env. Debug process debug false for both of them. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna go here and then go to the dev. Well, seems like that's too long. Dev. What the configuration here? That's weird. I mean, I have the. That's very weird. I mean, the default value should be development. Is that maybe because it's the same function? Okay, well, that's that explains it. So CloudFormation, I'm gonna hopefully open the correct one. I'm gonna go to the dev stack, and then the outputs and the API URL. Okay, there you go. We have one development, and the other one is production. Very nice. So this is how we set up two different environments. You could set up more if you want to, and that are based, the deployments are simply based on these variables, on these environment variables here, right? So once we change that, the different environment is gonna be targeted. Yeah, I think this is fairly good for this video. Yeah, I mean the next two, I think I'm gonna do two more. One is to connect custom domains, and then the other one is gonna be to automate that with GitHub Actions, which is which is quite a nice thing as well. Okay, well, yeah, hopefully you're still following along. Hopefully you find it useful. Let me know if that is the case. Let me know if you have any questions or any other comments. And yeah, other than that, see you in the next one.